this episode of Enterprising Minds. Got Alex and Dave here today. And Alex, you had an interesting thought on certifications versus real world experience. And if there's time, I think we'll talk about the new sales structure over LinkedIn and where that's falling short for how some of these new AI SaaS things are happening. But so Alex, why don't you cue us up with your
Sure.
experiences in certifications?
Yeah, I had an rather enlightening conversation where we kind of teased out a difference, which I don't think I've ever seen online well stated, which got into the different stages of analytics, web analytics, and the change in style, systems, and skills as an individual basically advances in that career set.
Right.
And basically, it got down to was the person I was talking to had some certifications, which was excellent in one particular area. That's great. But they weren't even aware of all these different changes and things that would basically advance them up that career ladder. And as we started talking about it, realized that there basically is very little that kind of gives you even awareness, even some visibility into basically that things are going to change as you enter this career, and that basically, as you want to basically proceed and advance up through it, you're going to have to learn new skills, considerably different and radically different skills to basically
Right.
succeed in this career. And that was just a funny thing was realizing that, and kind of the more generic kind of like thought off of that was basically just certifications in general. They're great at giving you that like, an inch deep of a puddle kind of awareness. But if you
Yep.
think that's the entire world versus the ocean that's around you,
Mm-hmm.
you're missing stuff. And also to realize how you survive in that ocean, those are different skills. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's just kind of funny where I've taken a lot of certifications and I'm not downtrodden them at any point because it's a great way to get a wide base of information very quickly to get that kind of, first touch beginner's knowledge into it. But there is so much more that happens with years of experience within those careers and in those, platforms, systems, whatever, job type, whatever it might be, that really gives you so much more respect for the understanding of the breadth of skills that actually will be relied on to
Mm-hmm.
succeed in this. And it was just kind of, it really became interesting. I'd be happy to also to kind of recap it and talk through just some of the kind of changes in analytics that I saw in some of those skill sets. But
Mm-hmm.
kind of what's your first take on like certifications and where they fit versus real world experience?
Yeah, I think for me, the certifications are great when you're starting out or you're
Yep.
just getting your head wrapped around an idea. Like, for example, when AI first came out, it was like, oh man, I don't even know how to think about this, but I know I should do it. And I know I want to try to be ahead of however many people I can be.
Yep.
um, so let me go to Google Cloud. Let me go to, even these platforms where I'm like, man, I would think these as like heavy coder, heavy web dev kind of environments, and that's not my world, right?
Hmm.
That, but I still took those trainings because I'm like, I need to know how these work because
Right.
but that's also for me. I'm a high context kind of person, right? So I want to know, how does this work? How can we, work with it, or what are the limitations that we're going to have to work against, all that kind of stuff. That worked wonderfully for me, because it took down the anxiety of the AI is going to replace us all, right? Which
Hmm.
was that first thing. Um, because it was, oh, actually, no, this is how it's going to probably play out, and this is how it can slot in, but really there are limitations. And then to your
Yep.
point, as I tried each new platform and each new thing, um, it really was the, oh, okay, no, 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 this is really good at tasks, but getting through like multi-step, high strategy things, it's not there yet. Could it be? Absolutely. But right
Sure.
now, as of this recording, no, it's not there yet.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was good for context. But to your point, I mean, even just thinking specifically in that analytics piece, yeah, I mean, 10, 15 years ago, starting out with, you know, Google Analytics and just a basic website thing, like the hardest thing to do is try to figure out how to get the website button click to track properly because Google
Yep.
Tag Manager didn't come out yet. And then
Right.
when Tag Manager did come out, I remember sitting there and having my brain melted because it was completely different way of thinking.
Right.
And I had to just suffer through it and rebuild it to be like, okay, this is possible. This is how this, you know, because coming off as a guitarist and a writer, and then all of a sudden, all right, tag manager, what?
Place your code here. Come again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, and then now, further down the road, you get into Power BI, you get into Looker Studio, you get into Tableau, and all these visualization kind of things. Um, that's like for me, that's like Tag Manager on steroids. Um, just because you have to get all the data to work together and you have to
Yeah.
visualize it correctly. But the key thing, and I think you might have mentioned this, is that storytelling aspect, right? The analytics do tell you what had happened, but where I do feel a lot of people, maybe this is a topic for another show because we could go super deep on this, but like I feel like, people forget that the analytics are not forward looking, they're backward looking. It can tell
Yeah.
you what happened, not what's likely to happen.
Mm.
So, you look at, oh, our previous campaign did, 40% click through rate. Well, great. But now who knows what's going to happen? It's a new campaign. It's a new time. Maybe your target audience just got food poisoning at an industry event and nobody's on their devices. Like you just don't know, and you can't use analytics as a crutch, but the power of it is that storytelling, and moving things forward that way.
Yeah. Kind of getting into it, that is some of those skill set changes. And kind of
Mm-hmm.
the stages of advancement that I was seeing was basically is one stage is that early level reporting, which
Right.
is almost kind of like technical confidence to get into a tool more than other people, or maybe just spending the time and attention toward it. And once you get into it, you can pull the default reports and stuff like that. That's great. You're the person who pulls the reports.
Right.
That extends a little bit with more investigation kind of work when you start having like, that's weird data, or someone has a question, they look at it and says, why did that happen, or something like that. And you try to start diving into it deeper. And then you start trying to find related things and custom reports and stuff like that. Now you're moving up in skills, definitely by not just pulling the default ones. But to your point about storytelling, there's a big step change from the person who pulls the reports to the individual who can make a presentation that's, stripped down to the core elements, kind of the executive summary version of it, and can make a really strong, compelling argument that creates change in that organization. That's a
Mm-hmm.
very different individual and very different impact to that org versus the
Right.
person who just pulls the reports. Right. And then, we kind of got into it also about dashboarding of creating custom dashboards, Power BI, Looker Studio, you name it, Excel
Mm-hmm.
even, or PowerPoint, however you want to manually do it or automatically do it. A big piece about that is interviewing, is not only knowing the data, knowing kind of the limitations of those systems. Speaking of kind of your point
Right.
about certifications with AI, big piece is knowing some of those limitations because it's the web analytics. There's always missing data. There
Right.
always is. It's never 100%. It's always sampling or missing some because of some reason. It could be technical, cookies not loading, who knows.
Right.
But you're always missing some, and it always looks like 100%, but it's 100% of the reported visits. It's not 100% of your visits. It's
Mm-hmm.
100% of the reported ones, the ones that happen to come through on the system after all those exceptions kind of, take
Right.
place. But they look like it's 100%. So it's, again, that kind of misleading aspect of it. But knowing that information and knowing how
Wait.
to basically craft that story well and do the kind of the storytelling and visual aspects of it,
Mm-hmm.
now you've got an entirely different skill set. You're talking about design, soft skills, and some technical skills
Mm-hmm.
because you've decided to basically template in this report, which means you've decided and picked the metrics and how you're going to filter segments, change those metrics. You
Right.
you pick the order of them too, so that as the person reads through that report, there's a storytelling element. You might start with impressions or something that's a big fancy kind of ego rubbering number, but you get into something then that's actionable that actually makes a difference and matters to the person too.
Right.
And trying to understand like, all the pieces that they need for that thing to actually be useful and worth the time that you're going to invest in basically creating this thing. There's a lot of skills in there that are not just I know how to log into the system or I
Right.
can pull a report. It is way beyond that at that stage. And that's it to your point also about changing of tools. There's a number of different tools that basically start to switch in there too of Google Analytics to Looker Studio or the Adobe Analytics versus Power BI kind of equivalents.
Mm-hmm.
You're switching systems as well. So lots of things to learn very, very quickly to then
Yeah.
be a very different person in that org.
Well, and the other thing too that comes into mind, speaking of the context piece of it, is just understanding the overall market that we're in. Like, when you and I were pulling dashboards for our first jobs in the marketing agencies, side of things,
Mhm.
it was free for all on data. There was no conversation on privacy. It was, you visited my site, I get to see
Right.
your click, right? But now with all the new privacy laws and the whatever else, to your point, it's the of the people that allowed us to track with cookies,
Right.
30%.
Yeah.
um,
Could be.
this is what we see. So okay, cool. Now we're talking samples of samples of samples
Right.
for our decision making. At what point do you go, meh?
Right. And also,
So
is that audience the same? Is
right,
the audience who allows all those cookies, are they the same? Do they act the same as the individuals
right,
who don't? I
right.
mean, you're creating this big assumption also that everybody is the same, the ones who do this action, the ones who don't do this action. But that doesn't make sense.
Actually, that brings up an interesting question. Maybe you know this. I have not looked into this at all. Since the AI bots can't, well, they can click on stuff. Would would a visit from an AI bot show up as traffic from a source that has allowed cookies or not?
Yes.
So would you even see it?
Yeah, they have a referral tag. Most of them have a pre-built referral tag. If you click on a link on Google Analytics, you'll see a UTM code that
Right.
says ChatGPT. So
Okay.
it gets pulled in. You can actually pull a referral report and see all the different AI bots and kind of the traffic
Right.
that they do. Or I shouldn't say AI bots, AI visits. AI bots would not be accepting cookies because they can't download cookies.
Right.
So they're your bot traffic versus
Right.
AI sent visitors would show up as referral, and they do have those tags.
Okay. So that's interesting because almost all my conversations have been on the server side.
Sure. Or on
So
the bot, there you're talking
yeah.
straight to ChatGPT or something, right? So then none of that shows up in analytics.
Right.
No. No, it
Hmm.
would show up in server logs if you were pulling your server
Yeah.
logs because you'd
Hmm.
see a bot access something and bot requested this and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And actually, that's a funny misnomer. We had talked about that a little bit earlier, but just kind of reiterating it too of how ChatGPT pulls information. It doesn't have a giant index like Google
Right.
does. It's not a saved copy of the internet that it's searching through like a big database or a big,
Right.
catalog. Instead, it's doing live searches. So you can actually, using the source of your ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever instance, you can
Hmm.
actually see the different queries it goes out and uses. So it searches best CMS for enterprise, and then it pulls in information. And it'll do a bunch of different searches with a bunch of different keyword strings. So it's still searching the internet like we are. But yeah, whether or not it shows up, no, it won't show up as a bot. It will once you start clicking on those links.
Yeah, I mean, these are all the nitty gritty
I
things that
know.
make for really bad radio, but are actually really interesting.
You know, you spoke about limitations with AI. That's the same thing here. Is basically is all these surface numbers look like magic,
Yeah.
and they never are. But it's a question of, why aren't they? And you need that expert to help you learn what are the exceptions that are going on here? What's the data that I'm missing?
Right.
What's the part of the story that I'm not seeing and but not being told?
Right.
And it takes a lot of experience to know all those weird little reasons. Like
Mm-hmm.
we used to always talk about the individuals who didn't allow JavaScript to load because cookies were being loaded via that, and then they just weren't in analytics. So we
Right.
lost, it was a guess, maybe 5%, who knows, of traffic. But speaking of like, only seeing 30%, if you're in Germany or the UK, your numbers are pretty trash because
Mm-hmm.
they click no all the time and they block. Or there's
Yeah.
browsers that auto block. Um, some parts of Firefox, but also definitely like DuckDuckGo or any of the privacy ones automatically deny cookies and tracking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see that traffic at all.
Mm-hmm.
So chunks of traffic that are missing, right? And they're on your site, they're interacting, they're still doing shopping carts, they're still buying stuff. Like it's not like
Right.
they're not customers, they're still reaching out, they're filling out forms, all the rest of that kind of stuff. They just have a privacy mindset that's a little bit different, or a system that's denying it on their behalf.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a couple of funny studies that have come out about AI traffic and how it's weird traffic, sometimes called deep traffic or something like that, because basically it's on, let's say you're on ChatGPT, you're figuring out the best CMS for your enterprise, whatever that example was. You run through a bunch of different options, you ask it a bunch of questions, it gives you a bunch of information, you get all this kind of stuff. And you get down to it, you're like, yeah, that's the one. You click on it and you go basically straight into the sales page and suddenly contact. That
Right.
is so weird from an analytics perspective because you had someone who just like popped out of nowhere, consumed
Right.
zero content, and then now wants to buy. And you're like, but but what? What happened to my funnel?
Well,
You were
but
supposed to read my
that's
blog post.
yeah. Well, I'm okay. So I'm in the middle of building a presentation around this actually,
Okay.
and um, so everybody subscribe to the Pathways newsletter because I'm gonna do a bunch of drafts, uh, of my thoughts in the newsletter here. So what I'm arguing, or the main thesis of it, is that we are in the messy transition between performance based marketing and brand marketing,
Yes.
and how everything that's old
Yes.
is new again.
Right.
And so, because when you sit and you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, how do I do influencer marketing and how do I do, social media? Because now I'm going to have to do social media, but do I have to hire people? And it's like, okay, well, let's start off with what you're already doing.
Yeah.
Are you going to trade shows? Yes. Can you give someone at said trade show who would otherwise be standing around and waiting for somebody to come talk to them at the booth, give them an iPhone and a battery pack and send them around the center? Do some live recording, you know, set up, do some behind the scenes, shots of how you're setting up the booth, right? Like make it a thing that you're there, not just, showing up and having whatever conversations you can and, whatever else, right?
Make it
It's,
visible.
yeah, it's just like little tweaks like that. Um, on the flip side of it, though, is we now have, and this is a thesis that I've brought up a number of times here. So I'm going to continue to do it until somebody can, prove me wrong. um, we have generations of workers, of marketers who have been brought up that they can track everything. and
Yes.
that most of their decision making is de-risked to the point where, okay, cool, I'm comfortable because I can recommend this and know that I'm going to be like 80% correct.
Yeah.
And then your bonus and your ability to move up the ladder will all be dependent on whether or not you estimated the performance of your campaigns correctly.
Right.
Right. Whereas now, to your point with the deep traffic, well, that's no different than what it was in the 80s before
Right.
internet. The
Someone
phone
just showed up
rang,
and
you said,
called.
"Hi, I'm interested in this." Cool. Tell me about yourself. Like,
Yep.
this is not that different. We've been doing it before.
Right.
But the problem is you actually have to have some confidence. You have to
Yeah.
have the ability to accept risk and
Right.
understand that things might blow up on you. And that's a completely different mindset, a completely different leadership style than all of the people that have been elevated and come up in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So,
I had this conversation literally with my team yesterday,
mm,
saying that basically that a lot of the mass market advertising and marketing that we've relied upon in the past
yeah,
isn't really going to work. Um, the numbers aren't there. If you look at click-through rates, there's a click-through rate study from Will Reynolds, um, and his agency that
mm-hmm,
basically showed that for paid or organic, whenever an AI overview shows up, or even if it doesn't show up, your click-through rates from the last year ago to today, are either a half or a quarter of what they used to be.
right,
So I'll say that again. Doing SEO or paid search a year ago versus today, you can expect a half to a quarter of the traffic you used to get. And that doesn't matter if an AI overview shows up or not.
mm-hmm,
It simply means less people are clicking.
right,
So now, if you have a half to a quarter of what you used to rely on, and you're
right,
all in on, oh, I've got a tiny bit of budget, I'll throw another 5K toward my monthly spend on paid search. Or no, we're going to bump up SEO again. Our budget's got slashed. I guess it's
right,
SEO time. Which, my gosh, the number of times that's been the case.
yeah,
We don't have any money. Hey, blog post.
yep,
It's like, oh, really?
yeah.
Um,
Guys, we
but
should
to
have
your
been doing
point,
this from the get-go. Thank you.
yeah, I know. I mean, it's so funny. It's like we need a long-term strategy, or we need a short-term results. Let's apply a long-term strategy. Okay, what? No, 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 no.
Hmm.
No, that means you are, reaping the results of a long-term strategy that you've been doing.
Right.
That's not the same. But to your point, you're not talking about spending much money on advertising. You're talking
Hmm.
about people taking out their cell phone and recording themselves at the show that they're already at.
And the
Also,
money
there's
that
a
you would
budget
be
there.
spending is to promote the content you've already created.
Right.
You know, it's the
Post it.
Facebook post boosting and the, YouTube thing. You're trying to expand your reach of the content you've already created.
And that's what it gets down to is basically is this concept more of a digital footprint,
Right.
where basically is you're in all of these channels. And that's the same kind of realization that we came to as well, was basically is that social media really needs to be tied in
Hmm.
as basically just like one of the other channels, like
Right.
organic traffic from organic traffic from SEO, you have organic traffic from social media, you have
Right.
paid traffic from paid search, you have paid traffic from social media too. All of those need to be tied more closely together instead of kind of being sectioned off and siloed the way they have been.
Right.
Because the numbers across the board are not good.
Right.
And to create enough traffic, to create a funnel, to create a customer journey, however you want to do it, to create sales means more effort in more places. And to your point, a different shift in thinking. Like it
Hmm.
was so easy before to have a budget of last year plus 10%. Yep, that's my new estimate for this year.
Right.
Just going to do more of the same, more of the
Right.
same. I'm going to switch things up maybe a little bit. I'll experiment it a little bit on TikTok, maybe. But let's be honest, I'm going to basically push it all into Google. And
Right.
it's like, and I also think about like back when the TV show Mad Men came out and the reaction that it made. in the marketing community.
Right.
'Cause it's so funny because it was a whole bunch of performance marketers who were like being faced with a show that had nothing to do with their career. And it
Right.
was like, oh yeah, we're these, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like let's drink some cocktails like we're, still coming up with giant new, campaign ideas. It's like, no, you're not. You're coming up with keyword lists based on volume numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not
Yeah.
even close to being the same, like
Yeah.
kind of
No,
mindset.
you're the nerds that weren't invited to the cocktail party. That's what that is.
Exactly. You're the
Yeah.
guy who was still at the office when everybody else left.
But the more interesting thing, and I'm going to be at least for me, because I like to think sort of big macro organizational
Yeah.
level, um, is how quickly organizations are going to adapt their KPIs and how
Yeah.
marketers are actually measured. Because if we're going to be in this really gnarly place where leadership still thinks that we can track things, via clicks and click through rates and form
Right.
submissions, it's going to be some lean years for people with a high variable comp. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well.
so, on the one hand, I'm excited because I like creating content. I like PR. I like events. So cool. Let's do it. I
There's
know
also
that is horrible for a lot of other people who are just like, no, I don't want to travel. I don't want to see thousands of people. I don't.
there's also I mean, we've talked about before about a moat.
Mm,
That applies here as well.
yeah.
I was on a demo call recently with a vendor who was saying like, oh yeah, we can now have one person do blog refreshes, not new blog creation even, because yeah, you can do that. Of course you can.
Right.
But at scale now you could have one person spend an hour and they could refresh 50 different blog posts and it'll automatically update to your CMS. What that meant was basically the moat that was creating content and interesting blog posts and all the rest of that stuff is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other kind of piece that there of just like, and programmatic did some damage to paid search and definitely to display.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ton because there was enough, basically enough market that was left that it didn't hit everything. But in some markets, I'm
Right.
sure it really hurt things. But it changes the way that you have to act then. Instead of being like the thing that's tough for me is going to be tough for everybody else is creating content. No, that's no longer true.
Right.
So you need to find that new thing that is tough for your competitors to do, that you can do, or that you're willing to do. And throwing out a bunch of blog posts is no longer it.
Well,
Doing it smart might be a difference. I mean, there might be some, still something there, but
yeah,
I
I
kind of
find
feel like
myself on the fence with that one
I
where,
feel like there's gonna be something new, like a newer medium that's basically has some kind of moat to it that makes it more difficult for everybody just to do in giant volume, which
mhm.
allows you then to have a chance to do it better than somebody else.
So this is where us doing this has been, well, it's the bright spot in each one of my weeks, right? So, okay, mushy thing over with. Two,
You deal with your emotions so well, Dave.
yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, the interesting thing for me is, as someone who started with blogging and creating those modes,
Yeah.
I fully recognize that a lot of the content that I cut my teeth on and started my career with is gone. The what is, who is, how is, those kinds of um blog posts.
Yep.
Um those are table stakes now.
Yep.
Doing this podcast has been interesting because I'm not creating podcast blog posts off of the podcast transcripts. I am literally copying and pasting the transcripts from the podcast and putting them onto the website. Right.
Hmm.
Even with that, what we see in our Google Search Console and whatever else, is that we're ranking for some pretty interesting keywords that I would imagine would be really hard to rank for. Now, are we converting anything? No, we're not selling anything. We're just coming together, having a conversation, and having some fun.
Mhm.
So cool. The flip side of it, though, is all of the things that I have seen as a gain from doing this are all of those soft skills, intangible, can't track it, right?
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
getting more buy-in in my day job because people are seeing content on LinkedIn featuring us talking about topics. So now people are coming to me and wanting to discuss things, which is great because when I was trying to do the internal politicking, I was smacking my face against, all these brick walls.
Mhm.
And then so it's led to some interesting opportunities, being able to do some guest speaking, being able to do some different events, um, all of those sorts of intangibles that are building things long term, right? But it
Right.
also becomes a credibility piece. Like, hey, I've had a podcast with some friends for 3 years. We have shown up and done it for 3 years,
What was
right?
it after like 10 episodes? We're in the top 90th percentile because
Something
like
like that,
almost all podcasts don't make it to 10 episodes.
right?
If we're doing it for a year, I think we hit like the 95th or 98th percentile or some crazy thing of like, there's only a
Yeah,
couple who last a year.
yeah,
So sticking with something too, I mean, honestly,
mm-hmm.
that is a moat in a way as
Yeah,
well. And creating content, I think, is, and I shouldn't say that creating content itself is completely diluted. I should correct that. It is consistently doing it and actually doing it
right,
is a difference from your competitors. And if that is a point of differentiation, then it is a moat. If it
right,
isn't a point of differentiation from your competitors, then it isn't. The
right,
ability there to create the content, like the resource request on that basically has lessened a lot.
right. And then I had an interesting experience this week with a coworker that was really good reminder of other people's experiences with your content is not yours,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
So I'm sitting and I'm outlining this presentation that I have to put together for next week.
Yep.
And so I'm just kind of out and people are walking by and stopping talking. And I start talking to this woman, you and I both know her. She just kind of threw away this line, oh well, you're always doing cool stuff. I see what you have on LinkedIn. And that was interesting to me because for me it's just like, man, I'm doing what I like to do, but I don't think it's all that cool because I'm the one doing it.
Right. Yeah. You know how the sausage is made. Like this is
Yeah, and what's that? Charlie Chaplin that said, "I don't want to be a part of a club that would have me as a member."
I think that was Groucho Marx, but
Groucho Marx. Okay, yeah, yeah. But man, I feel that. I feel that.
Yep. Yep.
So it's just like it's a good reminder of it's kind of all the above
Yeah.
because we don't have the analytics, and this is where I'm thinking out loud. So
Yeah, go for it.
everybody do your own thinking. If I'm creating content on topics that I want to be known for and that I have fun talking about, thinking about, researching, not only does that help with actually continuing to do it and to show up and to, have
Mhm.
that, but over time, you'll be able to get that influence, get that thought leadership stance, get that, um, get all of those things that people think they want by doing something quick and the silver bullets of whatever else.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, I don't know, I think that's where the motivation just kind of hits for me is I enjoy the process, I want to keep doing it, so I'm gonna do it. um And as people find that content, whether that's, podcasting, YouTube, social media, if they then come to the website, which interestingly enough, I've done enough like in-person informational interviews lately. Every single one of them has says, yeah, I did a little bit of like internet stalking before I met you. You seem legit. Right? It wasn't just, oh, my professor told me I should talk to you. It's the, okay, my professor told me to talk to you. Oh, wow, he actually knows.
Knows
you
a thing
know?
or two. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so it's an all the above, I guess. I guess, back to the marketing mix. It's just at the
Yeah.
personal level and not the organizational level. It's both.
Yeah, and that might be part of the key too of finding what that new thing
Right.
is finding that thing that you're comfortable with, the thing that you enjoy or you get some excitement from, and just pushing harder into that and doing it more than others because your personalities could be different
Right.
than the marketer who's working for your competitor. So if you enjoy making vlogs, awesome. You're probably going to do it way better and way more of them and stick with
Right.
it a lot longer than a
Right.
competitor who just read like a listicle that said, hey, number 7 was create more vlogs. Hey, we should do one.
Right.
Then they do one poorly because it's their first one and they're learning, and then they stop.
Right.
Right? That is a difference. I mean, just having that individual in your company or org that has a desire to, who loves event marketing. There are some people who love it, some people who hate it. A lot of people are pretty indifferent to it.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with social media, same thing with everything else, every other format too.
Right. See,
There's
I
a,
like traveling. I like going to,
yeah,
events, so long as I don't have to like stand in the booth and just wait. Right.
that's
if
tough.
I if I can walk around and,
Right.
interact with some people that way and then like, duck out for a cup of coffee when I want to, that's enjoyable. Or giving the presentations on the stages. I like that. Um, but yeah, and I know that puts me in a weird category of people where it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
do you want to do 3 days in Chicago? Yeah, I do. All right, cool. How about Atlanta? Cool, let's do it. Okay. How about Kentucky? Yeah, let's do it.
Kentucky's all right.
Yeah, Louisville's all right. Um, yeah. So anyway, um,
So there
you
you go.
didn't.
Find something you enjoy, stick with
Yeah,
it, make a difference that way.
absolutely. Which, to our other point, that's always been the recommendation. It's
Yeah.
just more important now.
Yeah. I mean, point of differentiation, I think
Yeah.
is big. Speaking of like kind of that mass market aspect,
Mm-hmm.
doing all the channels isn't possible.
Right.
Doing a couple of them well is definitely possible. Trying to identify where those opportunities are takes some skill and expertise.
Right.
And then doing it well and sticking with it takes some personality.
Right.
There's a lot of different elements there that are going to be points of differentiation.
Right. Okay, so there's your challenge, everybody. If you've made it this far, thank you. Your challenge for the next 2 weeks is to map out what are the things you actually enjoy doing, what are the channels you actually like engaging with, and then making a plan for that. Um, thank you as always. Like, subscribe, share. That helps us. Even 3 years in, helps us grow and get more people into the conversation. And reach out. Any episode ideas, any comments, feedback, personal experiences with these things, let us know. We would love to hear from you. We appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next episode.